Pete Serrano, who's running for Washington Attorney General, got like 99% support among the delegates. Near unanimous support, which, considering how divided that room was, is pretty remarkable. So obviously, he's speaking to people. So a couple weeks ago, we've been taping for our series of election interviews, 2024 election interviews. We had Pete Serrano in, and this was before, obviously, the GOP convention. And we talked about a lot of things, but one of the parts of that conversation I really found interesting and sort of this dilemma is you have this guy who has been fighting for gun rights. You know, he has this legal entity that we talked about on the show the other day. He's behind the lawsuit against the state's mag ban, for instance, high capacity magazine ban. So I wanted to know, like, what would you do in the office of Attorney General when it's your job to defend the will of the people? If the people of Washington state pass an initiative into law, for instance, that you just fundamentally disagree with. Let's talk about an area where maybe your personal beliefs might conflict with that job of doing what's best for, or what the citizens want you to do. Your foundation has fought back a lot against the gun control policies. Typically, when gun control issues are before Washingtonians or they're polled on that issue, they seem to be fine with it, by and large. Obviously, there's an inherent constitutional push and pull there between what the citizens support and what you support. But for instance, if there's an issue related to gun control that comes up that the citizens seem to be in favor of, but you, I believe, would be opposed to, how do you handle something like that?
Yeah, at the end of the day, my position is I advise the legislature on that and say, hey, look, the bottom line is this is not a constitutional. Here's your analysis as to why. And we saw this happen this year. You know, our organization is a 501c3, didn't lobby. You know, we've got limitations on where we can be, but the NRA, I know, was very vocal, and other organizations were very vocal on the various gun bills. And in talking to some of those lobbyists, the comments they received from the legislature was, we know it's unconstitutional, sue us. Right? I mean, we can't continually have that notion of this is my prerogative, therefore I will do, right? Having an attorney general who says, look, here's my analysis. You know, and in watching some of those bills, and not just gun bills, but there are various bills where, you know, the first 2 to 3 people, Trudy Inslee or Jay Inslee, or rarely ever Bob Ferguson.
Oh, that they've donated.
Yeah, not that they've donated, but they'll show up. They'll show up and testify on behalf or against the bill, right? And so when you see a bill that says at the request of the governor, at the request of the attorney general, and Trudy Inslee or Jay Inslee or Bob Ferguson, or there's a lady named Kristen Beneski who's the first assistant attorney general, they show up and they testify. They're clearly advancing a position that that agency, whether it's the governor's office or the AG's office, will take. And so rather than saying, hey, I'm walking lockstep with you, saying, look, I get 3 minutes, and here are the constitutional violations. I can give you the case law if you want them. They've already been provided to you.
So you're willing to show up at hearings as the attorney general and testify against bills that you do not think are constitutional?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like that, because I think it's one thing to advise people privately, and we know our current attorney general, he's all about privacy. Can I hide documents from people? Can I keep information from people? Whatever it is. So, you know, you can do that quiet consultation, but if they're not listening, like, Pete's going to be in there, like, telling, because I want people to know. Sometimes when the private consultation happens and then you don't make a big deal out of it publicly, it's like, well, we don't know what happened behind the scenes.
Well, exactly. I mean, I still remember early in the COVID litigation, back before you were doing this, when you were at your last job, I had emailed you and you'd had some records that I needed.
Oh, yeah,
for a
that's
case.
right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was my first introduction to you. And you told me where I could find them, and I got them, right? I mean, why is it so difficult to have to continually make these same requests for the same records that have been produced? The government should be more transparent, not less transparent. That's another issue that I want to hammer on is, look, the AG's office has $700 million. That's what's allocated currently. Certainly with Serrano as AG, it's probably not going to be that.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine the legislature is going to want to give me that kind of money, and I don't think I'll need it. But let's assume it stays that, and we have 1,200 staff. How many of those millions of dollars, and I know the answer is it's not millions, are allocated towards public disclosure? You know, what if I could revamp the office and retool it and streamline public disclosure requests?
Yeah. Speaking my language, you know I love a good PDR. So that's part of my conversation with Pete Serrano, a Republican running for Attorney General, as we speak. That entire conversation is posted on Patreon and Locals, so go to undividedpod.com, undividedpod.com. So that entire conversation, no paywall, is up on our pages.